Hi. A number of you have asked to see the comics, and that you were a little leery about giving your home address, so I couldn't send you copies, but that's quite understandable. What I want to do, though, is just give a quick run through of them and let everybody know that if anybody wants them, they can get in contact with me through my channel, and I will be happy to autograph them. But if you're a regular, then I'll send them to you for nothing. But uh, if you're new and you want a set, as I said, I'll autograph all 7 copies, and I will send them to you for $10 because, in all honesty, the postage priority mail costs $4.95, and it'll go any place in this country. Uh, and uh, and by the time I do things, I'm making what, $5 off of 7 comics. No big deal. But you can go to my channel and go to my private messages, and then we can exchange addresses. Uh, these comics, the first 4 of them were written in the '60s for an underground radio station that was basically that I was involved with. That was a protest against the Vietnam War. Now we were eventually triangulated, and the FCC put us out of business, but they didn't arrest us, so we were happy for that. uh, so I wrote these stories, and these were crazy stories because every time there was a full moon, well, they would expect one of my stories, and they'd read the stories over the air, and and uh, and people would be hopefully we had a following. So the first one was called Rocky's Inferno, and it was a takeoff on Dante Allegro's Inferno that he wrote, which was the first true Renaissance writing uh, that took place. And it's very similar, but it updates it. He takes you through the various levels of purgatory, and I take you through the various levels of hell. And the character on the front is a kid that used to work for me, and he wanted to be one of the characters, so we made him the main character. And it has some interesting twists in it, but it's not especially for kids that wouldn't be familiar with Dante's Inferno. And in it, there is minor nudity, but no big deals. You know, I mean, there's a couple of cracks and a couple of um, so forth there, but it's nothing. I wouldn't send it to anybody, say under 16, and I prefer people be 18 anyway. But it was a takeoff on Dante's Inferno, and the series. It's a 4-part series, and it was called The '60s Back in Time. Now the second one, which actually was published first because of a story I'll tell you in a minute, was called Rocky Marijuana Seed Meets the Old Coot. And this one was done in full color, as you can see. I mean, absolutely beautiful artwork. I was lucky. There was a kid in my town when I was looking for an artist that had just graduated cartoon school. And I never even knew such a thing existed. And he just spent 4 years in cartoon school, and this guy could draw anything, absolutely anything, and just gorgeous work. And and in the comic, I have at the time I had about maybe 6, 7 kids working for me, and and every one of them wanted to be in it. So we managed to work as many people in it as possible, and it's a good story. It's a parable like this one and the second one was on the Vietnam War. Now, High Times magazine, I give them a full page ad for nothing. Um, they were going to sponsor a tour by Cypress Hill, and in the tour they were going to sign up people to subscribe to High Times magazine, and they were going to sell my comics on the side. At least that's what they told me. So I invested a lot of money in this one. The the color the color print, the film just for this comic was $4,200, and that was in 1962 dollars. So that would be probably 10 grand today. But can't worry about that. It's gone. Uh, so I published. I published it. I wrote it and put it out. And because of the nature of the comic and the cover and all, uh, hardly anybody would carry it in their comic stores, so I didn't get any distribution. And then High Times Magazine backed out of their deal with Cypress Hill, and they backed out of their deal with me. Then they wouldn't even give me a review after they loved the story when I sent them copies of it prior to that. But I promised, whether I lose money or not, well, to me, no word's a word. I promised to put out a series of 4, and the second Rocky Marijuana one was called Rocky Marijuana Seed Returns to Psychedelic Land. And this is a much stronger parable against all wars. And the final one in the series was called In Search of Mr. Freak, and this one is going to insult a lot of people, and part of that was intentional. It's a competition for who's the biggest freak in the world, and it takes place between Charlie Manson, obviously the killer, uh, Spiro Agnew, the jerk vice president who was taking money in the White House, was a corrupt. He was an ex-governor of Maryland and vice president under Nixon, so I guess we couldn't expect anything more. Timothy Leary, who you probably heard the song "Timothy Leary's Dead." Uh, he was the one a Harvard professor that spread the word about turn on, tune in, and drop out of college. And there's a number of stories I could tell about him. People that turned Timothy Leary on to acid are the same people that turned me on. And there's a number of very interesting stories there. But anyway, it's this competition. There's Dennis Hopper, who was famous at the time and still is. He just died recently for all the movies he made. But he was the sidekick of Captain America uh, in in the movie with Dennis Hopper. Uh, so this is going to insult some people, but that's what life's all about. Getting up and getting interested in something. So then I decided that let me send these. There was on the Howard Stern show, there was a guy called Jackie the Joke Man. I don't even know if he's still there, but he was a big marijuana smoker, and I'm in favor of legalizing not only marijuana but all drugs, legalizing prostitution, legalizing any act between human beings or anything they care to put in their body. It's a victimless crime, and we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars and ruined the economies of many a nation over this war on drugs, which is absolutely absurd. But anyway, so I sent a copy of the Rocky Marijuana Seed ones to Jackie the Joke Man, thinking, well, maybe he'll say something on Howard's show. I'll get some publicity out of it, and I'll get a few sales. So Jackie writes me a letter saying, why don't I do a comic about him? And I'm thinking, Jackie's fine, but let me do this instead. So I wrote a lampoon, a 3-series lampoon on Howard Stern. All right. So it says the unauthorized lampoon. Either one of those terms, unauthorized or lampoon, would have made it perfectly safe for me to publish these regardless of what Howard Stern says. So I send Howard Stern a copy thinking, oh, maybe he'll get pissed off and he'll say something, or maybe he'll like it and he'll say something. And what happens? I get a letter from every Jewish lawyer in Long Island threatening to sue my nuts off. So I can't afford to go to Superior Court in New York. They're demanding that all copies be destroyed, no distribution take place, yada, yada, yada. It would have cost me tens of thousands of dollars to represent myself in court, which never should have, which would, in all reality, never should have been to court, because I have a right to lampoon whoever I want, as you do, and every other American. But you got to go to court to prove it, and I couldn't afford it. I'd already lost, well, in a total, between all the comics and a couple other things that were involved with the same thing, I lost $47,000. Another great deal, Rocky. Someday I'll be able to tell you a story that maybe I made some money somewhere, but so far it hasn't been the case. So anyway, so I write I do three different ones because I want to build up a readership. So the first one, I'm thinking Howard's going to like it, so I kiss Howard's ass and say some good things about him. Then when I hear about, from all his lawyers, then I decide, well, screw you, Howard Stern. So then I start picking the shit out of him in the second one, because there are stories, and they were intentional, that run through the series of 3. on this one I hope to build some readership, and then on the second one I hope to sell a lot more. And then everybody that wants to find out the ending of the stories that started in the first one, build in the second one, and ended in the third one. I was hoping to uh, generate some decent sales and maybe save my ass, which was already lost in these three comics, or four comics, the 60s back in time. So to make a long story short, no one would distribute them because of the threat made by Stern's lawyers. And I ended up with, if you look, if you could see where I see, I'm about 2 foot from the wall. On the other side of the wall, there are 40,000 copies of these comics. So that's roughly my comic story. And people that were asking me about them, and I could understand that I offered to send some people copies, and they didn't want to give their local address out. And it's looking at me, I don't blame you. But anyway, anybody that would like to buy copies, I'll sell you all 7 of them, and I'll autograph them for $10 because the postage is going to cost me $4.95 alone. So anybody that's interested, just go to my private messages, and then we'll exchange addresses and decide what's what, and that'll take care of that. But I wanted to get, it's always getting things out of the way. I don't know how many more things I got to get out of the way. Maybe I better throw some silver up here before I'm totally ostracized, and I don't even have any new silver. I got some of the same old crap. At least I had the decency to clean my desk off and to put the .999 stuff in and the sterling and the 90% stuff in bags, and I'm still hoping. Got my fingers crossed. Here's that pound. I got my fingers crossed about those Morgans, and hopefully I can get a couple hundred of them either by the weekend or early next week. Because the guy, I don't know if you've been following the floods in New Jersey, but the guy that I was going to get them off of has got 2 foot of water in his cellar, and he was told by the state troopers that all roads in and out of his house are washed out or blocked off, so he couldn't go anywhere. But I'm sure we'll hook up by the end of the week. So I want to thank you again, and I know this is not what I promised you, but because a couple of you asked about the comics, I just wanted to give you an idea of what they were and how they got to be. So thank you very much, and have a nice evening.